What's up, guys? About to do a little COVID woodworking. Today we are going to finish this deck. Let's get into it. Everything changes. Alright, I'm back. So, this is the deal. I am at my parents' house. They have a huge deck. As you can see, there are some new parts of the deck right here. This deck has been around, God, before I even lived here. 20 plus years. These are the old wood from it. Basically what happened was, the deck itself was painted. Let me see if I can find a decent piece. Was painted with a latex based paint. So you can see the top looks fairly alright. Latex is a type of really thick plastic, almost like rubber substance. It does a really good job at keeping water off, but the water runs down the cracks of the deck into the bottom piece. If you flip around the bottom, you can see you already got some mold and rot going on, and then your screws also rot out. So what happens is the top stays very, very nice, but the water goes down, soaks into the ground. As it gets hot, it evaporates up and ends up kind of rotting this board out from the bottom. Then you get some issues like these boards over here, right? And we've traced a lot of the bad ones. If you look at these boards right in this area, I can almost put my foot through them. Now, this first part of the deck has already been done. You may notice, why is it uneven? Why are these boards running horizontal to these boards parallel? There used to actually be a jacuzzi right here. So the support beams are completely different. Now, ideally, you would want to offset these. So you see how there's one straight line. You would want to offset them. For whatever reason, we were in a hurry, and you never want to do things in a hurry, and we didn't get that for at least this part, and a little bit partial of that part. I'm going to fix that problem when we get over to this side of the deck. You can see it should look like this. You should have a seam, and it should be straight. No seam right here. Seam should be tied in somewhere else. Alright, now, there are a few problems. First thing I need to do is, I need to tear up what I'm going to do next. So, you're going to see a quick little fast kind of speed up session. But I need to remove these boards, and then I need to set a board right in between this glass solarium and the support. You can see this board right here is supposed to be over here. So there's quite a gap. I got to figure out how I want to accomplish that and how I'm going to fix that. I am probably just going to lay a board all the way down to that board right there, but we'll get there in a moment. Alright, before we get started, there's a couple things that you're going to see me do that seem like a waste of time. Now, if we go down here, I am going to cut these boards out using my handy dandy small compact reciprocating saw. Now, you may wonder, why not just take a screwdriver and unscrew these? Now, in case you saw, not you're about to see, these screws are all rusted out. All the water sits on the top of this because it's latex, right? Latex doesn't allow the wood to breathe. So it naturally finds holes to seep into. Eventually, they'll start to look like this. Rusted, nasty looking screws. So, you're going to see a little bit of me cutting out all these boards. Let's get to it. just about do it. So we have finished at least the demo of the deck. Nothing too crazy. Now the plan is I'm going to remove these boards. There's these little screws sticking up that I need to cut off, but I'm gonna take a quick break, go to Home Depot, and then we'll get ready to actually lay down some boards. All right, I finally cleaned off most, I think there's like one sticking up, most of these old rusted screws sticking up. So this is kind of the skeleton of the deck and where the boards will kind of rest on, and we're going to kind of take a look at some of these boards. Now, if I jump down here, we see that this board is a solid, sturdy board. I know there's still a tip in there. I have a very hard time hitting those, so I just usually leave them in there, and they're rusted. Most new screws will go all the way around. Now I want to take a look at this board. This board is shot. In fact, it's just completely rotted, and just not a great board. Except if you look down here, the side wall of the board is still a solid board, and it's still usable. Even most boards that may look a little rotten are still usable boards here. We got extremely lucky. But now, if I were to recommend this to a customer, I probably wouldn't use shims. I would recommend them to just replace all these boards, have a deck last another 30 to 40 years, right? But we're on a little bit of a budget constraint, a little bit of time constraint, so we are just going to replace the top layer. Now, that is where we are at right now. I'm going to start laying the first couple boards down, and we'll start talking about what I do to secure those boards right now. Alright guys, here's the first of our many problems that we faced and are going to face with this project. I already knew this when I finished a few weeks ago with this part of the deck, is that these boards right here are off. They actually go a little bit inwards and they're not square. The reason why I know this is because it's so far off you can actually see. So if you look at this board and straight down, I know you can't see it in the video, but you can see the gap and the amount and the curve, the amount of the curve where it kind of slides in. So how can we fix that? I'm going to need to remove some screws and get everything straightened up, but first I need a board that is square so I can do the rest of this deck, right? So I need to make it square. So how do you make it square? Now, after pulling up these boards and everything, I realized the deck is not the squarest deck in the world. So I had to face a little bit of a problem. So what I did was, I'm going to assume that the solarium is square, and I'm going to base off the solarium. So how am I going to do this? I have a board already cut to size right here, and I'm going to take that board, kind of butt it up to its friend over here once I get it over this lip, and I'm going to butt this board up right here. I have the board flush end to end over there. I run the board straight down, and if I look right here, I know it's hard to see because of the shadow, but if I look right here, I have a little bit of a gap right in here. So you see that gap right there I just made? It's touching right here, but it is not touching over here. So the way you would do this is you would slide this over until the combination square touches, and it looks like it touches right about here. Their issue is that now I have a huge gap I have to fix. So if I fix that gap, I need to move all these boards and shift them over. And honestly, I'm going to at least shift these two boards over by undoing the first 4 screws or first 4 rows and kind of shifting it over naturally this way. And then hopefully by then I can even out that gap and make it look flush and natural. That's really the main goal, is to make it look flush and natural. Now honestly, we have spacers and stuff like that to make it straight and even, but right now we want it to be natural. So I'm going to set this new board in, and then I'm going to fix these boards, and you will get a little montage. Watch me kind of set these. Here we go. Alright, you guys saw a lot in that. You saw a lot of boards get moved and kind of shifted, and we can see here all the boards are kind of moved over until I got to this new board, and I'll tell you why I did that in a minute. There is a little bit bigger of a gap in between the boards here compared to in the shaded area over here. The reason why I didn't go all the way down is, one, that's super time consuming. It can definitely kind of move in a little bit and make it a little bit nicer. However, the new board I added and are going to add are going to shrink. They are going to change, and so I'll have to come in before I come in sand and finish, which is way later down the line. I will come in and definitely fix up and adjust that gap. But I wanted to get at least a little bit straighter so I can end up doing this board. Now I will need to remove this board along the solarium. There's just no rhyme or reason about that one. That board just does need to be removed. It doesn't fit in anymore, and I will custom cut a piece to make it fit. So anyways, about the board I removed. Now let's come over here. Now, lumber, when you buy from a wholesaler, is going to be very, very wet. In fact, it's going to have about a 20 to 30% wetness. This is the board I removed. You can see the large crack and split around the side of the board, and it's actually all the way down on the inside too. I thought when I put that board in I can get away with putting that board in where I did. Turns out when it dried up, it did end up splitting really badly, and they wanted it removed and replaced with a new board. So as I was going, I was fixing, and I decided to replace this board there. There is a couple of cheap quick fixes. You could put any sort of wood glue along the crack right here and kind of, I don't know, squeeze that together and make it up, and it'd be fine. However, it does look a lot nicer with a brand new board there, so I just went and flipped it out. Now, a couple things I need to do before I lay more boards. I'm going to take this board out. I'm going to lay this board. I have a space of about 1/8 or so of an inch, which is essentially the thickness of these cheap squares. I have 4 squares. I will put 4 squares along the board. I'll press in and then drill, I'll screw down the boards using these guys as my spacer, and then I just kind of go along that way, and let's keep working. Alright guys, so I had to pause that time lapse with a little bit of technical difficulties, but I wanted to pause real quick before we continue and just explain exactly what I did. So I had to make this board, the one that's closest to the solarium, straight. So how did I do that? Essentially, I took one of these squares, put it up against the wall, and it's not the most accurate measurement, but I want to make sure it says 3 inches. Now this obviously isn't 3 inches. It's probably closer to like 4, but I want to make it 3. As long as I make it even all the way across, I will get a straight board. I won't have to worry about relatively any kind of sway unless I'm a complete doofus. Then I take this and I use this as a spacer, like I said before, and I space out my board through and through. Alright, let's get back to the fun stuff. Alright, I figured I would stop the little time lapse because I was starting to lose some battery, but this is kind of where we've gotten. We're almost done for the day until we can start tearing out this long run right about here. But I figured this is a good stopping point because I can tell you exactly what I've been doing. So there are a couple, I call them floaters,
They're just floating joints. So when the board comes up to here, it butts up right there. Obviously, it doesn't actually fit this main nasty support. So what I do is I add another support right here. I tie it in. So it has much more of a accurate support. And I actually tie in two for this one. So I sandwich the bad board between two relatively good boards, and that'll keep the structure pretty good integrity for the structure of this. But we are still kind of rocking and rolling. So we will check in a minute. Calm down. Now here I am back in my house. Couple days later, just editing this video, and I realize I have no clue what I just said there. Understand, I am exhausted at this particular point. I still had 2 more days to go building this deck. So as time goes on, things get a little bit weird. These next few clips you're going to see are just time lapses. I don't really have any part where I break down and talk until the very end. So I want to explain exactly what happened right now. Essentially, one, I tied in supports onto the rotten joist or other supports that go down. This gives the board way more structural integrity, and it allows the deck to not kind of bend in weird places. I didn't really quite explain that too well, so I just wanted to explain it right now. Also, I did have a lot of help. My little brother and my big brother came over, and we built the deck together. And so mainly when my oldest brother was there, we just really got to work. I didn't really record a whole lot. So all I really did was create time lapses. So they're kind of weirdly put together, but hopefully this answers your question. Enjoy the rest of the video, and enjoy that end picture of that deck.
Alright guys, as we can see, the deck is not quite done, but we are done for today's video. We got a whole lot of work done. We got a whole much left to do, and we're just gonna end it off.